Welcome into the Verts podcast. I'm Tyler Graves alongside Carter Bells. This is episode 8 of the Verts podcast, and the Volunteers are coming off a loss to the Georgia Bulldogs in Sanford Stadium.
Yeah, first podcast we've done after a loss, as the Vols are 8-1 this year. Still a lot of hope for the college football playoff, though, as Tennessee, breaking news as we just watched the playoff committee, Tennessee's still ranked 5th after their loss to Georgia. So if we handle business like we should these last few games, Tennessee still has a chance to get in.
Yes, and they mentioned on the rankings show that style points is going to count tremendously the last 3 weeks for Tennessee, as obviously Tennessee, I think it's safe to say they play the 3 worst teams in the SEC East these last 3 weeks. So style points will definitely matter.
Yeah, let's go look at the game against Georgia now. Tennessee really just could not get anything going offensively on the ground. And then it seemed like you mentioned this to me, Tyler. Every time we got a first down, we didn't really take advantage of the tempo. Seemed like we continued to be relatively slow compared to what we normally see out of this team.
Yes, and I'm not sure why, because, you're playing in a hostile environment. It seems like to me you would want to go fast, so the crowd's not really a factor.
Yeah.
And Tennessee failed on 3 out of my 4 keys to the game. Number 1 was use tempo to your advantage. That was my number 1 key. Number 2 was contain Stetson Bennett. Didn't do that at all. Number 3, this is borderline. You could argue either way. I think Tennessee actually did a pretty good job with this, though. Don't allow Georgia's tight ends to take over the game. Brock Bowers had, I think, 3 catches for 29 yards.
27, 29, something like that.
And then Darnell Washington had 0 catches. So I think Tennessee did a pretty good job with that. Number 4, however, make the play, Hooker. That obviously did not happen, as there were several deep balls that he missed on.
3 or 4.
The one to Hyatt in the first quarter, the one to Fant in the fourth quarter.
And then the one to Brew before that. He
also threw an interception.
Yes, on a deep ball to Cedric Tillman. Defensively, Tennessee didn't look terrible until the ball got to Ladd McConkey. He absolutely tore up our defense. Let's see here, 5 receptions, not a lot of receptions, but he had 94 yards. And it seemed like every time the ball was thrown his way, it was either a first down or a 15-plus yard gain. I mean, it was ridiculous to watch.
Yes, and Georgia has – I didn't think, McIntosh, he's been hurt, so I expected Dijon Edwards to get the almost all of the carries, but they actually split them between McIntosh and Edwards pretty evenly. What were the stats for them on the ground?
So McIntosh had 10 carries for 52 yards. That's a 5.2 average, so pretty good. Dijon Edwards had 16 carries for 46 yards. That's a 2.9 yard average. So Edwards didn't do as well on the ground, but McIntosh, it seemed like just about every time he got the ball, he was chunking up the defense.
Actually, I think I was wrong. I think it was Kendall Milton who was hurt. I think that was the running back who was hurt. But anyway, I want to talk more about Tennessee in this game and less about Georgia. So Tennessee, I've heard a lot. Ever since the game ended Saturday, all I've heard is how this game was not as close as the score showed. And, right after the game, I thought that too. I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, how did we only lose this game by 14 points? And then I started thinking, and I actually went back and watched, if that's anyone but Princeton Fant with 4 minutes left, that's a touchdown down the left sideline. And it's 27-20 with, I believe that was 4 minutes left.
4 minutes, and I believe all 3 timeouts. So yeah, that's pretty big. And then of course it's always what ifs, when we lose. But Jalen Hyatt had 6 points on the overthrown deep ball in the first quarter. Brew McCoy, I don't know if he would have gone for 6, but that would have been a chunk play down the field that ultimately would have helped Tennessee. So there's 14 to 21 points, 21 points with Fant's overthrow, 21 points left out there on the field that were not put on the board. So that changes the game tremendously.
A major factor in this game was the crowd. Tennessee, this was the first time Tennessee has gone on the road this year and been in a hostile environment. Pitt was kind of loud, but it was nothing. It was nothing near what the Vols encountered on Saturday, as Georgia broke their decibel record. They were fired up from the get-go, and I ever since Kirby Smart has got to Georgia, they have had a pretty good, home environment. You should say.
Yeah, and that wasn't present before Kirby, really.
No, it was under Mark Richt. What Eric Ainge said was true at the time, but it is not like that anymore.
No, and people gave Eric Ainge a lot of flack for what he said, but you had previous VFL quote tweeting that and saying the same exact thing. Yeah, Sanford is not loud compared to Neyland, but like you said, the culture's changed.
Under Mark Richt, the culture at Georgia was kind of like a wine and cheese, like just go to the game, enjoy the game, don't get too loud, don't get rowdy. But now it is not like that, and Kirby has, he is relentless. He's just everything that he has asked for, the administration has basically given him, and that's what it takes in college for your program to be elite. You have to have buy-in from the fans, the administration, everybody who's involved in the program, and Kirby has gotten that buy-in. And just the way he carries himself, the way he, I guess, connects with the players. That's why he gets so many recruits that he does. Georgia, just take a look at the recruiting rankings. Georgia has been in the top 5, I think, every year since Kirby Smart has been there.
Yeah, and speaking on the crowd noise, 8 pre-snap penalties for the Vols.
Yeah. So that is, I will say, as much as I really don't want to play Georgia again, I'll be honest, it is encouraging to know that you won't have to deal with that again, because you're not going to be playing it at Georgia again. You might be playing in Atlanta, but that's a neutral site. And when I say Atlanta, I'm not talking about the SEC championship. Obviously, I'm talking about a playoff semifinal game.
If we make it to that point.
Yes, that's the only point you would see Georgia again this year. And right now, it's looking like, if I had to bet today, if Tennessee runs the table, I think Tennessee will get in. I do think that Tennessee will get in at 11-1. Of course, it all depends on what TCU, Oregon, USC, UCLA. It depends on whoever the Pac-12 champion is, and TCU. TCU could be out of this conversation by Saturday night, because they play Texas
at Texas
on Saturday, and they're last I checked, they were a 7-point underdog, even though they're ranked in the top 4 now. So we could not even, and this could change, because there's still, 3 weeks left before the conference championship games. So this conversation could totally change, and there could be a team that pops up that we're not even discussing, that isn't even on our radar. Kind of like maybe LSU. What if LSU goes on a run and beats everybody, beats Georgia in the SEC championship?
They're a lock. They have to be a lock at that point.
Then you've got a 2-loss LSU who Tennessee destroyed.
But they beat Georgia.
But they beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I don't think that would happen.
No.
But, I guess
it's never out of the realm of possibility.
So I want to talk a little bit about Georgia's defense in this game. Kirby Smart, after the game, I noticed in his post-game interview, he said, our guys have been preparing 2 weeks for this offense. And that kind of that kind of made my eyebrows raise, because Georgia was not on a bye week last week.
No.
They were playing Florida, and so that tells me that they have spent the past 2 weeks, not just one,
at least 2 weeks.
They've spent probably some of the bye weeks not preparing for Florida, but preparing for Tennessee. So I guess that's a positive for Tennessee. I guess that means your program's moving in the right direction. If you've got other teams preparing for your offensive scheme for 2 weeks instead of the team that they're about to play.
Yeah, and it's really crazy to think about because with that defense that they ran, they had relatively the same scheme that Kentucky had, but Kentucky didn't have the bodies on the outside for it to work. Georgia, with like you said, those top 5 recruiting classes they've had every year that he's been there, were able to run. I don't know if any of our listeners are know play calling all that well, but they ran man to man on the outside. And because they've got that 4- and 5-star talent out there, they're the first team this year that has been able to keep up with our receivers.
Yes, the thing about Georgia is they have big, physical, fast cornerbacks. And, since they're good at corner, they can play man-to-man against Tennessee and not get beat over the top. That's why you only had 3 passes the entire game where Tennessee had a receiver open for more than 30 yards down the field. Like Keely Ringo, for example, he's like 6'2", 200 pounds, and he's just as fast as Cedric Tillman.
Yeah.
So obviously you're not going to get anything on him, at least nothing deep, because they were giving Tennessee on deep choice. They were giving Tennessee the curl.
Yeah.
But they were not going to give Tennessee anything deep. That was obvious.
And they were willing to give up the curl because they knew that their guys could make an open field tackle.
Yes. Georgia did not miss. I wanted to talk about that too. Georgia's defense executed marvelously. They did not miss a tackle in open space. I never saw them bust a coverage, miss a tackle, anything like that.
No. And I'm going to look at the statistics here for Hendon Hooker. 23 for 33 with 195 yards. When's the last time he threw over 20 passes and didn't have 200 yards through the air? I mean,
it was a lot of short stuff.
That's all they were giving up,
Yep.
and they were okay with giving up that stuff because, once again, they could tackle, and no other team has been able to do that. I mean, Jalen Hott, who's one of the shiftiest guys out there, was not able to break their defenders for extra yards most of the game.
Tennessee was – so I'm going to go back to a couple of key moments in this game. So Tennessee was down 21-3, and they had the ball, and they were driving down the field. They actually get down in the red zone inside the 20-yard line. It's 3rd and 2, and Tennessee has 2 false starts in a row. So they back up to 3rd and 12, and of course they have to end up kicking a field goal. So there, you could argue, is 4 points that Tennessee could have had. Tennessee just shot themselves. I feel like Tennessee really shot themselves in the foot a lot in this game, and it's due to the crowd noise. I mean, obviously whatever Tennessee did during the week to try to prepare for the environment, that did not work.
No. And if I'm going to be completely honest, after that ridiculous 75-yard punt down to the 1-yard line, that was an absolute bullet. I knew that this was not going to be Tennessee's day because with that crowd noise and with that punt, I was like, "There's no way." I mean, it's not going to happen today.
Another big moment in the game was right after that, the safety fumble, incomplete pass.
The safety. It should have been a safety.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The one thing that nobody thought they would call, they called. Play stands. How does the play stand? Obviously, was it Carvin?
Yes.
Obviously,
I think it was Spraggins.
Obviously, his knee was down. You can't argue that his knee wasn't down and the ball was in the end zone.
Yes.
But I guess they said they can't see with the angle where the ball is whenever his knee goes down, so they don't know. So they say it stands. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was clearly to me it was a safety, but they did not rule it a safety. They said it was a fumble down at the 1 yard line.
Even Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson, who I can't stand, I agreed with them. They were like, well, that's the last thing we thought they'd call. And, yeah, so.
But it didn't matter because we punted it to Georgia, and then the next play they threw it to Ladd McConkey on a double move.
Yep.
And we get
Who was a Tennessee fan growing up,
Yes.
by the way? That's a little more salt in the wound.
Mm-hmm. Jim Chaney did not recruit him.
No.
So, another Tennessee kid that got away due to previous coaching staffs not recruiting them. Just a little lesson there. All right. Well, I'm about all Georgia'd out.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
about
let's
ready
move
to
on. Let's move on
to the next segment. We'll go into our SEC talk segment here. So, first off, we'll talk about last week's games. We already discussed Tennessee, Georgia. Do want to talk about this game just for a quick second. Florida at Texas A&M. Texas A&M had multiple guys out with the flu, so Florida was able to go into College Station and win 41-24. As soon as I heard about that, I was like, there's no way, and some of the players that had the flu, it's not like they were just, backups.
The majority of their starters.
Like Connor Wigman.
Yeah.
He had it.
They had to start Haynes King,
yeah.
who has – I've got a side tangent here. He has the weirdest throwing motion I've ever seen in my entire life from a D1 quarterback. Like, it's just weird. But, they ended up having to play the majority of their backups, and Florida took advantage of it, 41-24. Anthony Richardson had a great game. Best game he's had since Tennessee.
And he had how many yards and touchdowns?
Let's see. He was 17 for 28 through the air with 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on the ground, he had 7 carries for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Anthony Richardson had 4 touchdowns by himself. He threw for obviously 201 yards, and then on the ground, Florida killed it, 291 yards on the ground. The majority of those coming from Montrell Johnson Jr. and Trevor Etienne. 100 from Johnson Jr. and 80 from Etienne.
Yeah, I watched this game. I didn't realize Florida ran for that much, but I knew it was going to be a lot because it seemed like watching it live that they had a lot of rushing yards. Didn't quite realize it was almost 300, but they certainly ran the ball effectively. As for A&M, they are now 3-6, and one more loss, and they are not going to be going bowling. And
how's that $10 million?
The fact that's
$10 million buyout or per year? It's like a $90 million buyout, isn't it?
The fact that this is even a conversation is ridiculous. I mean, how is this even a possibility that Texas A&M does not make a bowl game this year?
Well, I wouldn't have expected it going into the season, that's for sure. Yeah, Jimbo Fisher, he better be glad that his buyout is as much as it is, because if it wasn't $90 million, he wouldn't be there right now. So,
well, next year, I've heard some people say this, and I tend to agree with them. Next year, if this happens again next year,
they're gonna have to pay it.
They're gonna have to. I mean, you can't let this happen to your program. I mean, this is what This is year 5, and
he has a worse record than Kevin Sumlin did here or there.
Yeah, I mean it's really bad. So,
and it's not like he doesn't have talent. I mean, he had the number 1 recruiting class this past year.
He has all the talent in the world.
He's the type of guy to do the least with the most talent, and that's sad. Could you imagine if Tennessee had that recruiting class under Josh Heupel? It'd be ridiculous. We wouldn't have lost to Georgia. Well, I'm not going to say that, but because Georgia's just ridiculous. But we would have. I don't think Alabama would have gone down to the wire.
No. And speaking of Alabama, we're going to move on to the next game, which is Alabama at LSU. The Tide, they're having a rough season, as this is their second loss of the year, and it's not even Iron Bowl week yet. This is the first time since 2010 that Alabama has lost 2 games before the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, Bryce Young, I mean, he still looked like a magician back there, but you're really, really seeing how bad this team struggles on the road. He did have an interception, but he also had 328 yards through the air. Jahmyr Gibbs, 15 carries for 99 yards, but it seems like whenever they need to get down the field, they cannot.
So, obviously LSU, since the Tennessee game, is a different team, it seems, as Jaden Daniels specifically. Jaden Daniels has really came alive here in the second half of the season. He's really kind of ignited this spark in LSU's offense. Kayshon Boutte has also started to play up to his potential, whereas earlier this year he was nowhere to be found. And then for Alabama, you just continue to see this team struggle on the road, like you said, Carter. And I think it just goes back to this team is undisciplined. They have several issues on defense. They have several, I would argue they have several coaching issues, not necessarily Nick Saban, but at the coordinators. And they actually asked him, the reporters asked him after the game, like, how would you assess Bill O'Brien's, I guess, play calling tonight? And he was like, well, I'm not gonna bash anyone publicly, or he said something to that effect, or I'm not going to criticize someone publicly, but I would expect there to be major changes made in the offseason. I don't think Pete Golding or Bill O'Brien will be back at Alabama next year.
No, I would agree with that.
Especially Pete Golding. I mean, their defense is just, I mean, it's awful. It's unrecognizable. The Alabama defense was known for years to be one of the top defenses in all of college football.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama breeds defensive coordinators because Nick Saban is a defensive guy.
Yeah, and now the script A, the Alabama logo, has stood for average for average defense.
Yeah,
that's what it stood for this year.
Yeah, which is crazy. I think you're really starting to see Nick Saban come down from that peak too. I don't think it's just coordinators. I just think he's starting to get up there in age. He's not going to be able to coach these guys like he used to.
I mean, yeah, like, people can say all they want. Like, I mean, I do think he's the greatest of all time.
Yes, easily.
But no one can. You can't tell me someone at 95 years old is
is as good as they were when they were 50.
Yes, I mean, no one.
I mean, he's not 95.
No, but I'm saying, like, people are like, Saban could coach till he's Alabama fans. Saban could coach till he's 95 years old and he would still win national championships. I don't think so. I don't really think that's how it works. With everything, you have a prime with everything.
Yeah.
And at some point, with everything in life, you start to fade out and like look at NASCAR. NASCAR drivers have a prime stage in their life. At 40 years old, they don't just forget how to drive a car, but they're not as successful as they were in their 30s and their 20s. Why is that? Well, you just wear out. You get at the end of your career, and it's not. You didn't forget how to go fast. You're
not going as fast.
Yeah, it's just performance, and it's the same thing in the NFL, the NBA, anything, and it doesn't even have to be athletics involved. I mean, literally anything in life. You're gonna fade out as time goes on eventually. Next game we will discuss. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. Liberty, Hugh Freeze, fire up the djembe drums. They beat Arkansas 21-19 in Razorback Stadium.
Yeah, Arkansas was a top 10 team to start the season as well. Injuries have really just plagued this team all year, and they finally start to get healthy, and they lose to Liberty. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Hugh Freeze is putting in for a Power 5 coaching job conversation once again.
Specifically one on the Plains.
Correct. Wouldn't be surprised if that trigger ends up being pulled. But Liberty, they just, I mean, it was Liberty was really in control all game. It took it took Arkansas scoring 14 in the fourth quarter to make it a game. So I mean, it was 17 nothing early. Or, excuse me, 21 to 3 at halftime.
Liberty, I know, blocked a punt.
Yes, but it was 21 to 3 at halftime, and it took a safety from Arkansas and then 14 points to make it a 3-point game.
Yeah, I think Liberty blocked a punt. I did not watch this game, but I thought I saw a video on Twitter of Liberty blocking a punt.
KJ Jefferson also threw 2 interceptions, so that doesn't help. On the ground, he couldn't do anything either, as he had 16 carries for 36 yards. Arkansas on the ground had 144 yards total. Sanders and Green ended up splitting carries, but Liberty through the air just killed it. 15 for 25 with 224 yards and 3 passing touchdowns for Jonathan Bennett, their new quarterback. And
yes,
on the
he's
ground,
actually
91 yards.
I'm pretty sure he is the third quarterback that has played for Liberty this year, and they're still 8-1, because they've had to start multiple guys, throughout the season, but they've had success with every single one of them. So, and I mean, that's obvious after they beat an SEC team in Arkansas. Next game we will discuss, and actually the last game we will discuss, is going to be Auburn at Mississippi State. Mississippi State was able to pull out the win 39-33 in overtime.
Yeah, I saw a video on Twitter of Mike Leach throwing the chairs down, saying, "You guys cannot sit down because you gave up a massive lead," as Mississippi State was up 24-20, or 24-19 at halftime. Auburn ended up scoring 14 points. No, excuse me, it was 24-6 at halftime, and they scored 9 in the fourth quarter, none in the third, and Auburn ended up scoring 13 in the third, 14 in the fourth. So it was a bad game for Mississippi State in the second half, but they were able to pull it out. Will Rogers, 42 for 59. That's a lot of passes, almost 60 passes in one game. 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. I will say, though, this Auburn team showed a little bit of fight, something we haven't seen from them really all year.
I've seen a lot of Auburn fans, well, I won't say a lot. I've seen some Auburn fans on Twitter who want to see Cadillac Williams, who's the interim head coach right now, who want to see him be the head coach next year.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say if he's not the head coach, at least put him on the staff. He needs to stay on the staff because he really has. He's brought a new fire underneath these guys, lit a new fire. Robbie Ashford had a bad game, 7 for 22 with 75 yards, so terrible through the air. But on the ground, 256 yards, 108 of those coming from their quarterback.
And Mississippi State obviously plays Georgia this week in Starkville, so that might be an interesting game. I don't know. We'll pick that here in a second.
Put the dogs on upset alert. No, sir. Never mind. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this week's picks for the SEC, and then we will take a short break. First game we are going to pick is Vanderbilt at Kentucky. The line on this game is currently Kentucky minus 18. Let's see here. Kentucky obviously is led by quarterback Will Levis.
The second coming of Jesus in the coal mining business. Will Levis. I don't think he had a really good game against Missouri, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention Kentucky struggled against Missouri this past week. We ended up not talking about that game, but it was. You had a roughing the kicker, roughing the punter. That was a big problem. I think ultimately the referees made the right call. Might end up seeing that changed in the future, but I'm going to go ahead and pick this game. Give me the Wildcats. I don't think Vanderbilt has a chance.
I agree. I think Kentucky will win this game. I do not know by how much. If I had to pick, I would say Vanderbilt plus 18 because that is quite a few points considering Kentucky does not have an explosive offense. I think just because I think it'll be low scoring, and just because of that, I will pick Kentucky to win, but Vanderbilt plus 18. Next game, LSU at Arkansas. This game comes on ESPN at noon. LSU is now ranked 7th in the country. Arkansas is unranked. However, LSU is only favored by 3 points. I'm going to go with LSU in this one. I like how they're playing right now, and I do not like how Arkansas is playing.
Yeah, this one's not hard. Give me the Tigers. Razorbacks have struggled as of late.
Next game, Alabama at Ole Miss. This is, I would call this the biggest game in the SEC this weekend, as it's now number 9 Alabama versus number 11 Ole Miss.
I think 9 is a weird number to see next to that big old script A.
Alabama's favored by 12 points. Let's take a look at some statistics. Statistically, Alabama has more points per game, and they have less points allowed than Ole Miss. However, Ole Miss does put up more yards per game than Alabama, and Alabama also has better defensive statistics as they give up less rushing yards and passing yards than Ole Miss per game.
Yeah, I think Alabama's going to come out and play a pretty good game. Give me the Tide to win this game, but I think Ole Miss is going to end up covering here, so it'll be Ole Miss plus 11.5. But the Tide do win.
I think the difference in this game is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Alabama to win a close one late in the fourth quarter by leaning on their running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. Next game we will discuss is South Carolina at Florida. The line on this game is Florida minus 8 right now. This game comes on, I think, the SEC Network at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, South Carolina, that game against Vanderbilt was kind of close. So give me the Gators here. Anthony Richardson had a really good game against Texas A&M, and I think that'll continue.
I like Florida in this game as well. I don't think South Carolina will be able to win in the Swamp, although last year they did beat Florida at home. The next game we will pick is Georgia at Mississippi State. Georgia is currently favored by, let me see if I can get the line here, 16.5 points. Carter, I'm going to be honest, I thought the spread on this game would be a little bit bigger, even though it is a night game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Georgia, really showed that they could do whatever they wanted against Tennessee. If they could stop a high-potent offense like that, they really shouldn't struggle against Mississippi State at all. So give me the Bulldogs from Athens here.
Before the season, I picked Georgia to go 11-1, and I picked their one loss to be at Mississippi State. Well, I no longer think that is the case. I think Georgia will go into Atlanta undefeated, and I think Georgia is going to get the win here big over Mississippi State. So I've got the Bulldogs winning and covering. And when I say the Bulldogs, I mean the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think UGA is going to cover here.
And then we almost considered this for the Toilet Bowl this week, but it is not our Toilet Bowl game. Texas A&M at Auburn. Auburn is favored by 2 points at home. For some reason, this is a night game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of these teams are 3-6.
Yeah, both have lost 5 in a row. I should add.
Wow.
So it's been a tough road.
Well, someone has to win this weekend.
Yeah, someone has to win. And you know what? I'm going to go Auburn here. I'm going to go with the spread. They showed some fire, like I said. Showed some fire last week, and Texas A&M is just a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, someone has to win this game, and it's not going to be Texas A&M. I'm going to go with Auburn at home. Give me the Tigers and Cadillac Williams. All right, so that's going to do it for our SEC Talk segment. We will be back with non-SEC games, picks, and our top 15 rankings. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our non-SEC pick segment. We're going to start off in the Big Ten with Purdue at Illinois. Illinois is now ranked 21st in the country. Purdue is unranked. The line on this game is 6.5 in favor of the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pick this one. Purdue coming off of a really bad loss to Iowa, 24-3. Giving up 24 points against one of the worst offensives in the country is unforgivable. So give me the Fighting Illini here. I think they're going to handle business against the Boilermakers.
Yeah, Carter. Purdue kind of looked dead last week against Iowa. I'm not sure what happened, but they looked discombobulated from the start and never really got anything going. So I'm going to go with Illinois in this one. Next game, Maryland at Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win this game. Yeah. Although I could see this being kind of a trap game scenario where Penn State might overlook them, and this might be a close game in the fourth quarter, but I do think Penn State will win.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Penn State's going to win this game. I don't think they're going to overlook Maryland.
Next game we'll discuss is Louisville at Clemson. This game is now it's not a ranked matchup, but Clemson is ranked 10th. And the line on this game is only 7 now in favor of the Tigers. Last week, I'm sure. Let me look. The line it opened at 7.5. So the line has not moved much since the loss to Notre Dame last week. But I'm going to go with Clemson just because I think they will bounce back after a rough showing in South Bend. I don't think Clemson's very good, especially offensively, but I do think they're good enough to beat Louisville.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in the bounce back game. I think Clemson's going to end up winning this game, and Louisville's going to get their 4th loss on the year.
All right, next game, Iowa State at Oklahoma State. This is a sneaky. It's an unranked matchup, but it's a sneaky matchup because it does factor into the Big 12 race, as Oklahoma State still technically does have a chance, I think mathematically, to play in the Big 12 championship game. Iowa State, however, is favored by 1 point, and they are the away team, Carter.
Yeah, this was weird to me at first, but then I realized Oklahoma's struggled the past 2 weeks, 48-0 to Kansas State. That's bad. And then Kansas beat them pretty handily, 37-16. So bounce back really wasn't what happened here. But I think Oklahoma State's finally going to get it going. I just cannot see the Cyclones winning this game. So give me the Cowboys.
So this is the first game of the entire night so far that we have disagreed on. I'm going Iowa State. I think Oklahoma State is on a downward slide, and I do not see them turning it around anytime soon, as they have major issues on offense right now. So give me the Cyclones on the road. Next game is also going to be in the Big 12. Kansas State at Baylor. Baylor is favored by 2.5 points at home. This game comes on Fox Sports 1 at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, Kansas ranked 19th, Baylor unranked, both with 4 conference wins this year. I'm going to go the Baylor Bears. I'm gonna hope that they end up winning this game and then they go into TCU and beat TCU later this season.
I'm going with Kansas State. I think they will beat Baylor this weekend and probably rise a couple of spots in the rankings for next week. Next game, this is a big game, really. This is actually where Josh Pate is going this weekend. Shout out to Pate State, as number 22 UCF is taking on number 17 Tulane. Tulane's favored by 2 points at home. This game comes on ESPN2 at 3:30. So a battle of 2 group of 5 teams here who are both ranked. Tickets are as low as $16. So you could go watch a top 25 matchup for $16 this week if you wanted to. FPI favors UCF in this game. I also like UCF. Even though this game is at Tulane, I'm going to pick Central Florida to win.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Tulane has had things rolling. They're kind of up living the high life right now, and UCF is just, they've been building, getting better. I think they're going to end up knocking off the Green Wave here this weekend.
All right, and another ranked matchup here, as we have number 25 Washington, who's 7-2 by the way, traveling to Oregon to face the Oregon Ducks. They're ranked 6th right now in the newest playoff poll. This is a 4 p.m. kickoff on the West Coast, so it's not going to be a night game, but it will transition into a night game with it being daylight savings now. So Oregon at home in the evening. I like the Ducks here. I'm going to go with Oregon. They're playing pretty good football right now, even though I think Washington's good. I think Oregon will be able to hold on. If I had to pick a spread, it's 13.5 right now. I would probably pick Washington plus 13.5.
Yeah, give me the Ducks in this one. Bo Nix has been quite literally Superman these past few weeks, and I don't think that's going to change any this week. So give me the Ducks over the Huskies.
Next game, ACC matchup, North Carolina at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is favored by 3.5 points. I don't understand this line. I'm going with North Carolina.
Yeah, I'll go with North Carolina too. Drake May has had a pretty good season, and that's going to continue.
And then our last game before we get to the Toilet Bowl, TCU at Texas. TCU is ranked 4th in the nation right now, and Texas is ranked 18th. However, Texas is favored by 7 points. This game is in Austin, and it will kick off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. So this is also one of the bigger games this weekend.
Yeah. Give me the Longhorns. I think Quentin Ewers is going to have a really good game. Sark is going to be dialing it up on offense, and I think TCU is kind of overrated. So give me Texas.
I like Texas at home as well, so I'm going to go with Texas, and that would make them 7-3, and that would drop TCU to 9-1 on the year.
And out of the top 4. That's the big one.
All right, and then, of course, we cannot forget about this. Our last game is the Toilet Bowl. This week's Toilet Bowl is going to take place in none other than Jonesboro, Arkansas, as the Arkansas State Fighting Botches host the UMass Minutemen. Arkansas State is 2-7 on the year. UMass is 1-8. The line on this game is Arkansas State minus 17 points.
I usually go with the underdog in these, but that spread is ridiculous. So give me the Fighting Botches to win this game. End up being 3-7 on the year.
I can't pick Butch Jones to win. I cannot pick Butch at all. So
they're champions of life in Arkansas.
I gotta pick UMass. I can't pick him to win a game.
He's been known to struggle against UMass.
That is true. 17-13 in 2017, folks. Never forget that game. All right, so that's gonna do it for our non-SEC pick segment. We will take a short break and be back with our top 15 rankings. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time to read off the top 25 playoff rankings as well as give our own top 15.
All right, so I'll do 1 through 15 for the college football playoff rankings. At number 1, no surprise here, Georgia. After that game against Tennessee, everyone expected that, except for some Ohio State fans on Twitter who aren't very smart. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Michigan. And number 4, TCU ends up moving ahead of Tennessee, who is now at 5. Oregon at 6. LSU at 7 following their win against Alabama. USC at 8. Alabama drops to 9. Clemson drops to 10 after their beatdown against Notre Dame. Ole Miss stays stagnant at number 11. UCLA also stays at number 12. Utah at 13. Penn State up to 14. And North Carolina moves into the top 15, rounding it out at 15.
NC State is now 16. Tulane 17. Texas is the highest ranked 3-loss team. They check in at 18.
Well deserved.
Kansas State 19. Notre Dame is now 20th.
Yeah.
Illinois 21st. UCF 22. Florida State 23. Kentucky back in the top 25 at 24. And then Washington rounds out the top 25. So,
Kentucky moves up into the top 25 after their big win against Missouri last week.
You've got four. Actually, yes, I think you have 4. Well, no, I take that back. I was trying to look at who moved up into the top 25. I think you do have 4 that weren't in it last week. Notre Dame, Florida State, Kentucky, and Washington. I think those are the 4 new teams in the, playoff top 25 poll. All right, and now it is time to give our own top 15 rankings. Carter, do you want to go first? Or
Sure, I'll go first. So at number 1, no surprise, once again, Georgia. I ended up keeping Ohio State at number 2, even though they really struggled against Northwestern. I don't know. I'm going to keep them at 2 for now. Michigan at 3. Tennessee drops to 4 in mine. TCU, if Tennessee was in the Big 12, Tennessee is 12-0 at the end of the year, and I just think the resume is better, even with the 1 loss to Georgia. So Tennessee at 4, TCU at 5, Oregon at 6, USC 7, LSU moves up to 8 in mine, Alabama 9, Clemson drops to 10, UCLA at 11, Ole Miss at 12, Utah at 13, Penn State moves into my top 15 at 14, and Texas is my top. It rounds out my top 15 at 15.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read off my top 15 rankings. So when we started doing this, I said, I do this based off of predictively, like who I think would win on a neutral field most of the time. But I realized the past couple of weeks I've kind of gone away from that, and I've started doing more resume-based stuff. So obviously I have Georgia at 1. 2 and 3, I don't care who you put 2 and 3, but I have Michigan at 2 and Ohio State at 3, and that's literally just because of this weekend. What Ohio State did against Northwestern was awful. I don't care if it was
windy or not. It was bad.
I don't care if they were playing in a Cat 5 hurricane with. There's no excuse to beat Northwestern by 14 points.
No, I think Northwestern ended up throwing the ball like maybe 10 times the entire game. So no, that was ridiculous.
I mean, Southern Illinois beat Northwestern.
Yeah.
And Miami of Ohio beat Northwestern. I have TCU 4 and Tennessee 5. But again, I think 4 and 5. I could make arguments for Tennessee being 4, and I could also make arguments for TCU being 4. So I don't really care how you rank those two, but those are 4 and 5 in my opinion. I have Oregon 6, UCLA 7, LSU 8, Alabama 9, USC at 10, 11. I have Ole Miss. I dropped Clemson all the way to 12 because I was not impressed with them at all against Notre Dame. Utah 13, Penn State 14, and I have the Florida State Seminoles at number 15 in this week's poll.
A lot of people are sleeping on Florida State. They've really played well all year. Starting to look like the Florida State of old.
And I'm going to go ahead. So I don't usually do this, but I've got like I said, when I started doing this, I was doing it based off of a predictive model, which is kind of like odds making, where it's more of a future-based model, and it's less based on what you've done, and it's more about what you could do, or I guess what you're expected to do. I'll just do the top 10 for this. So this is, I guess, kind of my power rating of teams. On a neutral field, this is literally who I would favor over the other. I've got Georgia 1. I would favor Ohio State over Michigan on a neutral field. So I have Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. I have Tennessee 4 because I would favor them over the next couple of teams I'm about to read off. Oregon, LSU, TCU, USC, UCLA, and then I think I would put Alabama at 10. I mean, Alabama just
neutral is not on the road, but it's not at home.
They do not play good on the road at all.
And like I said, neutral is not on the road, but it's also not at home. It's not in Bryant-Denny.
So that's kind of how my power ratings would go, but you would start to really see change past 10. I mean, I would have Texas probably 11 or 12. I would also have, like Tulane. No offense, Tulane, but Tulane would not be anywhere near the top 25 in a power rating. So that's just how those work. So that, I guess, those are our rankings, and we are going to go ahead and take a short break, and we will be back with the Tennessee versus Missouri preview. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our final segment, the Tennessee-Missouri preview. Tennessee is 8-1 and ranked 5th in the country. The Missouri Tigers are 4-5 and are coming off a loss to Kentucky at home.
Yeah, the spread here is minus 21 Tennessee, so the odds makers are predicting a massive win for the Vols here, a big comeback game after their loss to Georgia. Let's look at Missouri's offense first. Through the air, Missouri's not great. Only 203 yards passing through the air. They average 350 yards per game offensively. Tennessee, 523. So big difference there. Also points per game, Missouri with only 23, Tennessee with 45. I'd also like to talk about, this isn't necessarily related to this game, but Eli Drinkwitz got a contract extension after their win against South Carolina the previous week. And the amount of flack I saw, Brian Rice quote tweeted that and said, on purpose? They purposefully gave him a contract extension, and then he loses to Kentucky. Of course, he was in a game with Kentucky, but Kentucky's not very good. Offensively, Tennessee definitely is the favorite here, as they should be with just about anybody they play.
I'm not going to do a keys to the game for this game, mainly because I don't think it's necessary. I think Tennessee's going to win this game. I'm going to be honest, though, I'm not confident in how much. I could see this game, believe it or not, I could see this game being a two-possession game or less. But I could also see a scenario where Tennessee wins like just like last year, like 62 to. I think the score last year was 62-24.
Yeah,
I could see Tennessee winning this game 59-17 or 59-20, kind of like last year. But yeah, I don't really think it's necessary to do a keys to the game for this week.
Yeah, my thoughts on this really is it's a bad week for Missouri to play Tennessee because Tennessee is going to come out angry. They just really laid a goose egg against one of the better defenses in the country, and that's embarrassing to them considering the offensive output they've had all year. That's pretty embarrassing for them, especially as a player. I would be mad. I'd be ticked off that we were stopped. So I think Tennessee is going to absolutely boat race Missouri this weekend. I think the defense is going to show up, and it's Senior Day. We should add it's Senior Day here on Rocky Top, so that's just another added, motivational factor here. Hendon Hooker's last game, more than likely Jalen Hyatt's last game, Cedric Tillman's last game, and this team's going to come out to play, and they know that style points is what they're going to need to get into the college football playoff again, and they're going to put up a lot of style points this weekend.
So, what is your final score going to be?
Obviously, Tennessee's going to win this game. I'm going to say Tennessee. Let's do Tennessee 63. Missouri. Let's do Tennessee 63. Missouri 13.
Oh, that would be. I don't think that's going to happen, but
I'm confident in these guys. They're going to come out ticked off. No, you know what? I'll say 63 20 24. We'll do 63
okay,
24.
That's a little more respectable. I was looking at Missouri's schedule earlier today, and I was looking at some stats and stuff. And what surprised me the most is that Missouri this year actually has a pretty good defense. Last year they were awful, and then at the end of the season, Drinkwitz let a lot of guys go on the defensive side. On the defensive side of the ball, he fired a lot of his coaches, and ever since then, the defense has played a lot better. This year, they are not nearly as bad defensively as they were last year. Last year, they averaged they were giving up like something crazy, like 260 yards on the ground a game last year. This year, they're just giving up 112 rushing yards per game. So the rush defense is much better than it was last year. I'm going to pick Tennessee to win, but I'm not going with a blowout. I'm going to go with Tennessee 38, Missouri 17, that is exactly what the line is. It's 21 points. So I'm going to go with the Vols to win by 21. So if you like to listen to me, stay away from the spread this weekend because I think it's going to be right around that 21-point mark. But like I said, I could see a scenario where Tennessee just comes out and handles Missouri.
Do you see a scenario where Tennessee loses this game?
I mean, yes. But I think a lot of things would have to go bad.
Yeah.
And Missouri would have to play really, in my opinion, Missouri would have to play great football. Not just good. They would have to play great football against Tennessee, especially on defense.
Yeah.
Missouri's defense would really have to play well against Tennessee.
What really makes me think that Tennessee isn't going to struggle defensively, and the reason I think Missouri's not going to score a whole lot originally before I changed it to 24 is I think they're going to look at this Tennessee secondary and think, oh, Brady Cook's going to be able to just throw all over this defense. Brady Cook is not a very accurate quarterback. He's a lot better with his legs than he is through the air. He's got 7 interceptions on the year and 6 touchdowns. So
yes, that is not a great touchdown to interception ratio.
Not very good. So I think you're going to see a lot of what you saw in the Kentucky game where this secondary locks up, especially after being embarrassed last weekend.
All right. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Verts podcast. Please sponsor us.
Yes, we would love your money. Please. That'd be great.
Yes. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.